Hello and welcome to Civil Rights Training. My name is Josette Raper, and I am the Agency Capacity Specialist Regions Lead here at United Food Bank. There's quite a bit to go over today, but this training should only take about 30 minutes. Let's get started. USDA Food and Nutrition Services, FNS, requires civil rights training for people involved in all administrative levels of programs that receive federal financial assistance. It is also a requirement of the Coordinated Hunger Relief Program, CHRP. People who receive the training include staff and volunteers who regularly interact with program applicants and participants, and those who determine eligibility. Civil rights training must be completed each year. Complete review of this presentation satisfies annual civil rights training requirements for the Commodity Senior Food Program, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and United Food Bank Partnership expectations. This course will introduce you to or refresh your knowledge of modern civil rights legislation, protected bases identified in the legislation and the differences among CSFP and TFAP compliance requirements, how to provide meaningful access to people who have limited proficiency with the English language, special rules for faith-based agencies, public notification systems, the provision of excellent customer service as a complaint countermeasurement, how to handle complaints of discrimination, and additional information, including some of the civil rights compliance resources available to you. Congress began acting regarding civil rights with the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Between 1866 and 1964, an extraordinary amount of activity and advocacy took place. A full study of this time period would take far longer than the time that we have today, so we'll move up just a little bit and start with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This law established the prohibition against discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs and activities receiving federal funding. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibited discrimination based on sex. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibited discrimination based on a person's disability. And the Age Discrimination Act of 1975 prohibited discrimination based on a person's age. The Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987 served to clarify and strengthen civil rights regulations, and the Americans with Disabilities Act specifically prohibited discrimination based on a person's disability in all state and local programs except for public transportation services. The terms protected base and protected class are used interchangeably during conversations about civil rights, but there is a difference between a base and a class. A base is an actual trait or characteristic that a person has. For example, the base driver could apply to a person who drives their car to work. Another base, bicyclists, can refer to people who ride their bicycle to work. A class is made up of all people who share a certain base characteristic. So people who drive to work belong to the class drivers. Likewise, a bicyclist belongs to the class bicyclists. A protected base is like any other base, except that it has been specifically identified in civil rights legislation as being a characteristic on which discriminatory actions must never be based. A protected class is made up of those who have the protected base characteristic in common. Protected bases are not broken down into further identifiers. The base age applies to all ages. Color applies to all colors. Race applies to all races, and so on. The protected bases are race, color, national origin, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, and age. A requirement of any recipient receiving federal financial assistance is that they must agree to several assurances, including those involving civil rights. Each year, regional food banks have their TFAP and CSFP recipient agencies sign Form HRP 1040. Similar agreements are made between FNS and DES and regional food banks. Furthermore, all agency partners of United Food Bank, including those who receive federal commodities and those who do not, are required to complete an annual civil rights training to remain in compliance with your agency partnership agreement. Regional food banks and their TFAP and CSFP recipient agencies are required to provide reasonable accommodations for clients who are disabled or have limited mobility. This includes ramp and elevator access, encouraging the usage of proxies, and providing alternate methods of distribution, including drive-through and home delivery, where available. So now let's consider people who need help but are not fluent or proficient in English. We refer to these participants and prospective participants as having limited English proficiency, or LEP. The objective of LEP policy is to overcome communication barriers and to provide LEP clients with the same opportunity to participate in our programs as English proficient participants have. When an agency fails to provide reasonable language assistance, the agency may be seen as discriminating on the basis of national origin. So it's vital that food banks and agencies take reasonable steps to assure meaningful access to services for all clients, regardless of English language skills. To determine what the reasonable steps to assure meaningful program access are for your agency, look back on the language use of participants you've helped in the past and the frequency with which you have contact with LEP persons. Then use the historical data to help plan for your LEP needs. Keep in mind that the greater the number or proportion of LEP persons your agency serves, and the more frequent your contact with LEP participants is, the more likely language services will be needed. We also want to consider how important the program is to people's lives. People cannot survive very long without food, and people who have access only to non-nutritive foods cannot perform to their maximum potential at school, at home, or on the job. So CSFP and TFAP activities and services are considered critical programs. Finally, evaluate your agency's resources to determine if coming into compliance with LEP requirements or aspects of providing language assistance services would create an unreasonable strain on the agency. When looking at resources, take everything into account. Dollars and equipment are obvious resources, but the number of people you have on staff and their individual language skills could also make an impact on your determination. To assess your frequency of contact with LEP persons, use the same technique as before. Examine historical data, community information, and agency projections. Also, consider any outreach initiatives in communities with a high proportion of LEP persons. A new outreach campaign may increase the likelihood of language assistance services being needed. You can use specific questions to begin your agency's self-assessment. When you need a certain piece of information, use available resources to save time and make the determination easier. By tracking language usage, agency records will contain information that allow you to establish baseline numbers. To help with learning more details about your local area, the U.S. Census Bureau, school districts, and other agencies can be valuable resources. One helpful resource to highlight when searching for information about Arizona communities is the Census Bureau's American Fact Finder. It can be accessed online at data.census.gov. The next question to ask yourself is how important the program is to people's lives. We know that nutrition programs are critical. Everyone, regardless of wealth, status, or background, needs to eat. We also know that delaying or denying a participant's access to commodities or services could very well lead to serious or life-threatening situations for the neighbor. Another way to judge a program's importance is to look at any compulsory client activities that are a part of the program. An example of this would be the requirement to provide nutrition education to CSFP participants. If you've determined that there is a need for a higher level of language assistance services, but found that the resources you would need to expend to provide the services could cause damage to the agency's health, explore other options like resource sharing. Collaborating with other agencies when developing language assistance materials can save time and money for all agencies involved. If the agency doesn't have enough resources to develop LEP material and you cannot locate a collaboration opportunity, you must be able to substantiate the claim of insufficient resources when there is a potential services that could be limited. Be sure to work with your HRP program specialist to discuss the agency's resource and collaboration barriers. The HRP may have access to resources that can help prevent unnecessary limitations when providing critical services to LEP clients. In order to advise clients of their rights when participating in assistance program, agencies need to employ an effective public notification system that has information about program availability, understand how to file a claim of discrimination, and prominently display the USDA FNS non-discrimination statement. And Justice for All posters help bolster your notification system by clearly presenting the client with federal non-discrimination policy. And Justice for All posters must be prominently displayed in the original size of 11 inches wide by 17 inches tall. Full color or grayscale displays are allowable. However, the preference is for full size posters in color procured by state agency or FNS. The green AD475A poster is for use by CSFP and TFAP agencies. Remember, the poster needs to be seen where the services are being provided. Effective January 1st, 2025, the written notice of beneficiary rights must be posted at all TFAP locations and provided as a handout to CSFP participants. Program availability notification will include on its materials the hour the distribution site is open, the phone number, program eligibility and participation information, and the non-discrimination statement. Language notification systems and other important information need to be delivered in a way that allow clients and prospective clients to receive the information. Sometimes, common ways of presenting information can cause difficulty for people with certain disabilities. For example, a person with a total loss of vision may need written information provided in an audio format or in Braille. A person with a partial loss of vision may not need audio or Braille and may be comfortable seeing the same information in a large print format. Different disabilities require different accommodations. Be sure to work with the client to provide the most effective, reasonable accommodations that will allow the client the same opportunity to participate in programs as those who do not have disabilities. The USDA FNS non-discrimination statement informs people of a program's legally protected bases and provides USDA contact details so people can get a version of the statement in an alternate format or file a complaint of discrimination directly with the USDA. All materials and sources used to inform the public about USDA FNS programs must contain the non-discrimination statement. For websites, you have the option of placing the statement on the program information homepage or linking to it. If you do put the statement on your website, it does not have to go on every page, just on the program homepage. The full authorized non-discrimination statement is about 1,600 characters. When drafting larger materials like pamphlets, brochures, or booklets, use the full authorized non-discrimination statement. Sometimes smaller items are used to promote services. Materials like one-sheet flyers, door hangers, and appointment or postcards don't have the space for the full statement. When drafting these smaller items, USDA allows for the use of the short non-discrimination statement. Small giveaway materials you might use when tabling your canvassing, like pens, notepads, or grocery bags, are called reinforcements. These items are not required to have the full or short non-discrimination statement. The USDA has found that many civil rights complaints aren't caused by agency discrimination based on the protected base, but are instead related to a person's perception of the customer service that they've received. When people receive poor customer service, they may believe the root cause of the behavior is discriminatory and file a complaint. They may be right, but they could also be wrong. Either way, the person carries the perception that they have been subject to discrimination in a federally assisted program, and that perception provides reasonable cause to file the complaint and start an investigation. Also, a person who feels uncomfortable visiting an agency for service due to past perceptions of discrimination may choose to go elsewhere for services. The person may also believe that they will receive the same treatment at other locations and choose to stop seeking assistance altogether. Avoid having poor customer service as the cause of a civil rights complaint by coaching staff and volunteers on some of the ways we can provide excellent customer service without incurring additional costs or causing inefficiencies. We want clients to be informed and feel appreciated, so simple things like listening to client concerns, explaining program rules, and asking for feedback on our performance goes a long way. It does not need to be a client or prospective client who files a complaint of discrimination against your agency. Anyone has the right to file a complaint of discrimination. For example, a person who is not in need of agency services and is simply walking by your building can see something that leads the person to believe that what they saw was a discriminatory practice. That person has the same right to file a complaint as that of a program participant. Written complaints can be submitted in a number of ways. The HRP has developed standardized forms that are recommended for use, but clients must not be required to use an HRP form or any specific form at all. For example, a complaint written on the back of a flyer or printed on a sheet of copy paper are as legitimate as those written on an HRP form and must be accepted. People may choose to complain verbally too. When receiving a verbal complaint, agencies are obligated to offer assistance. Use the appropriate HRP form to capture relevant information, submit the complaint, and document related events. People also have the right to file a complaint anonymously. When this happens, advise the person that the complaint will be handled with the same urgency as other complaints, but the USDA, HRP, and your agency will not be able to reach out to inform the person of complaint findings or to gather additional information. Each time a complaint is made, whether it's customer service or civil rights based, file this in your grievance log and call United Food Bank immediately. If you do not have a grievance log, please download this by going to our agency resources page. Form HRP 1014A is used for complaints against agencies. When the complaint involves multiple programs or the involved program is not readily identifiable, you can use either form. The primary concern is to capture the information needed to begin the investigation. Individuals always have the right to file directly with FNS. Remember to treat verbal complaints received over the phone the same as those received in person. For all complaints, vital information to document includes 1. The complainant's contact information when the person does not want to remain anonymous, 2. The receiving agency's contact information, 3. A description of the event or events leading to the complaint, 4. On what base or bases the person believes discrimination occurred, 5. The contact information of any witnesses, including agency staff or volunteers. We can ask clients and prospective clients to give us these details, but we cannot demand them. We can never limit or deny access to services based on a witness's choice not to be involved. 6. The date the alleged discriminatory behavior occurred, and 7. If the behavior is ongoing, the date the behavior started. Complaints of discrimination are processed within 90 days. If you are a local commodity distribution agency, like a food pantry or a congregate mill site, immediately forward a copy of the complaint to your regional food bank. The regional food bank will begin working with the HRP to process the complaint and send it forward to HRP. Each agency must maintain a civil rights complaint log. Use the log as a place to put copies of complaint forms and to document any actions or conversations related to the complaints. The format of the log is up to the agency but must capture elements in the 2016 Memorandum of Understanding MOU between DES and USDA. Binders, folders, and other similar items are acceptable. Be sure that the complaint log's location is known to the staff and include its purpose in your internal agency trainings. United Food Bank has provided each agency partner with a binder containing a grievance log. Additional logs can be downloaded on our agency resources webpage. Compliance reviews provide the opportunity to identify and correct deficiencies. The regional food banks are responsible for reviewing the compliance of sites under their authority. A USDA or HRP compliance review can happen at any time. When an agency has been selected, the office performing the review must provide it with a written report of findings, along with recommendations to correct deficiencies. Agencies that fall out of compliance run the risk of having their CSFP and or TFAP partnership terminated. When an agency is found to be out of compliance, it will receive a written notification of the reasons or findings causing the determination of noncompliance, as well as recommendations on corrective actions. The HRP works with non-compliant agencies and tries to achieve a voluntary compliance. Agencies are allowed 60 days to implement corrective actions. When the agency is not able to correct noncompliance in 60 days, the HRP will evaluate the facts of the issue to USDA and FNS for further review and action. Civil rights training requirements for all HRP programs are the same. Training must be taken each year and is mandatory for frontline staff and volunteers. New employees and volunteers should take the training before beginning frontline service. The term frontline means those who work directly with the public. Training is also mandatory for the supervisors of frontline staff and volunteers. Program administrators and agency leadership who are not responsible for the direct supervision of frontline personnel are encouraged to take annual training, as it will provide people in these positions with knowledge that can help avoid compliance issues while increasing client satisfaction. Training must cover specific civil rights topics as listed in FNS Introduction 113-1. It is allowable for the HRP to provide training to one person from the agency. The person can then deliver training to the remaining agency personnel and new hires. When people come to us for service, we need to make sure we're collecting information about the person's race and ethnicity. In general, applications for nutrition program benefits will contain a section dedicated to this data. Clients may become concerned or offended when asked about their race and ethnicity. For clients who are open to explanation, tell them the importance of why we collect the data and provide assurance that race and ethnicity are never used as eligibility criteria for our programs. Race and ethnicity information is collected and used to enhance or improve programs and as a measure of agency civil rights compliance. Some clients may not be open to explanation. While the client's self-identification of their race and ethnicity is preferred, agencies are authorized to select race and ethnicity options based on observation of the client. 2 ethnicity descriptors, Hispanic or Latino, and not Hispanic or Latino, are available. Only 1 ethnicity selection can be made. 5 race options exist: American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, Black or African American, White, and Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. The number of selections for race is not limited. The collection of this data is required for CSFP participants, but it is optional for TFAP participants. The USDA requires that participant ethnicities and races be collected for the CSFP program. However, they must never be required to furnish information about their races or ethnicities as a condition of eligibility. When clients decline to provide this information, agencies must provide it on the client's behalf. Observe the client and determine, to the extent practical, the client's race and ethnicity. When the client provides the information, agencies must not alter the provided data. The agency must advise the client of voluntary data collection and what it is used for and not used for. If the information is not volunteered, the agency must notify how it will document the information. The full USDA FNS non-discrimination statement can be found on the USDA website at fns.usda.gov/FNS-non-discrimination-statement. English and Spanish versions are available as PDF downloads. The short non-discrimination statement is used for smaller materials. In its entirety, the short statement is, "This institution is an equal opportunity provider." When using the short statement, be sure the size of the text is no smaller than the text in the body of the piece. Remember, reinforcement items do not need to carry a non-discrimination statement. FNS Instruction 113-1 is a critical civil rights compliance document. It outlines the information we're covering today, as well as potential enforcement actions that can occur when agencies do not comply with civil rights requirements. FNS 113-1 is suggested reading for all agency staff and volunteers, especially those in a civil rights coordination role. It can be found on the USDA website at the link on your screen. We encourage you to reach out to the Arizona State Department of Economic Security whenever you need guidance on civil rights compliance. Their information is on the screen. Thank you for participating in the civil rights training. As a reminder, please be sure to complete the HRP 1015 form to indicate that you have completed today's training. Once you have signed these forms, please send them to me at my email address on your screen, jraper@unitedfoodbank.org. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time using any of the avenues on your screen. Thank you and have a great day.